Hello, everyone, and a big welcome to our podcast. Today, we have a really special episode for you. We're talking with someone who is not just talking the talk, but walking the talk in the world of startup. Meet Varun Chawla, the amazing person who founded Build3. At Build3, they are doing something awesome. They help people who are starting their businesses by giving them a helping hand, advice, and the tools they need to make their dreams come true. Varun isn't just about ideas, he's about action. He has created a place where new business owners can find friends, get guidance, and have access to everything they need to succeed. He believes in making a big positive impact and helping other entrepreneurs to reach their goals. So let's give him a warm welcome to Varun Chawla. Varun, we are super excited to have you here to share your story and tell us about how you're making the startup world a better place. Let's dive in and learn more about your journey and the incredible work you're doing at Build 3. Welcome, Varun. How are you?
Let's do it. I'm very well, thank you.
So, Varun, when I asked this question, what does future of work mean to you? So, what are the
Yeah.
first few things that come to your mind?
The first thing comes is let's do work that is meaningful to us. Let's do work that's meaningful to our communities, to the world at large, versus doing work that just sort of keeps us busy, sort of drains us mentally and physically, and just works towards, say, personal fame and fortune. Let's do stuff that matters. Right? That's the first thing that comes to me.
So, Varun, knowing your journey, seeing your journey, I understand where the meaning comes from. So, what if, any of the viewers who are in a way in between finding meaningful work?
Hmm.
So, what are some of the steps they can take to identify their, how do they add meaning to their work?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I think it was 2020 for me where I had this moment where I was uncertain about what I wanted, what was meaningful to me. And I discovered a framework called the Ikigai framework. It basically asks you these four questions: what do you love? What are you good at? What does the world need? And how can you make money doing it? The overlap of these four things is your ikigai, or your most meaningful work, or the best thing you can do with your life, for yourself and your community. Right? And I think it is a helpful exercise for anybody to do. It is now a series of books. The first book really was just focusing on how, people in certain parts of the world where they're very community centric, health centric, and just like focused on doing stuff that is meaningful to them, and how they've ended up being 110-year sort of lifespans. The book really talked about that, but after that it spawned off a set of additional books and articles, etc., that how can you find your ikigai. And really there's this one Venn diagram that keeps coming up between these four questions: what do you love, what are you good at, what does the world need, and how can you make money doing it. Intersection of these four is your ikigai. So any of us can sort of explore either through these materials or these articles what is our ikigai, and then find a small way of bringing that into our own lives to start, and over time maybe making it all of our lives.
Yeah, yeah. So, Varun, where do you see future of startups going? Be it sectors, be it their approach. It could be anything. So, where do you see future of startups?
Hmm. So I've been operating in what is today considered a niche, right? Which is impact startups. As we say, better for the mind, better for the body, better for the earth, or these could be also called SDG, Sustainable Development Goals as defined by United Nations. Startups aligned with these directions. So these could be things that what I work on, and
Yeah,
according to me is what all startups should be doing, but today that's not the case. A lot of people are building for, as we say, personal fame or personal fortune. And I think of things like, say, gaming, gaming meaning like gambling or alcohol, or some of these things which I feel like could be clearly thought of in these areas, versus there's many startups that say reduce air pollution or reduce plastic in the ocean, or help improve mental wellness, or help improve physical wellness. Startups in these lines are more what I would call better for the mind, better for the body, better for the earth, or connected with the sustainable development goals. So this is the direction that I work in. Now, this is an emerging area, right? Just like in the last decade, we've seen a lot going on in the climate space, right?
Yeah,
Climate would
yeah.
be one aspect of the impact area. I think the broader impact area is what I would like to work in and what we are working in. And that's a growing part of society where everybody is looking for meaning. So if you look at millennials and now Gen Zs, they're not just doing things for the sake of doing them. They want to know why, who's behind it, how does this make the world better, and they're aligning with things that, you know, uh, makes sense versus willy-nilly sort of like hurt the environment or hurt other people around us or takes advantage of people around us. Like people are becoming more sensitive to these. I don't think it's become mainstream yet, but I hope it will. And I'm leading the movement. I'm part of the movement that's going in this direction that let's do stuff mindfully and thoughtfully.
So what advice you have for millennials or Gen Z who are discovering their meaningful work and
Yeah,
expressing in the form of startups? What
yeah,
are few things they should be cautious about? They should.
sure.
How do they not, fall into the trap of analysis paralysis? So yeah,
Yeah. See, I think the last few decades, there's been a transition from an environment of scarcity to an environment of abundance. Right? In
yeah,
our parents' generation, it was hard to get a job. So whatever job you took, you took it, because and you
yeah,
traded your time for money. That's the
yeah.
mentality that say our parents or definitely our grandparents come from. Right? In our generation, there's ample jobs. We can get money from many places. Now we have the opportunity to choose where do I want to give my time, and I can receive more than money. I can receive satisfaction. I can contribute to a larger purpose. I can do more than just trade my time for money. That relationship can be far more complex, sophisticated, and just more positive for everybody involved. So I think thinking in from this mindset is important. Our parents love us, they want the best for us. Unfortunately, they're conditioned to think in the way that the world was when they were growing up. Now the world has changed. So I encourage everybody to sort of tap into their inner voices, see what really makes sense to them, and not just trade their time for money. Find purpose also in how they spend their time, and you'll get paid. You'll find satisfaction. You'll make a difference both to yourself and the world around you. So make decisions that way.
Interesting, interesting. And I mean, I have been I mean, I feel lucky that I have received an opportunity to be there, spend some time with you, and explore the niche that Bill Tree is crafting and supporting uh, entrepreneurs. I just wanted to know, where do you see the future of startup ecosystem going? So your thoughts there.
Um, So you can clearly see that AI is going to be a big part of it. You can see it in content, you can see it in programming, you can see it in like imagery already. You can see some areas like stock market investing or uh, uh, um, I think journalism, law, some areas are going to be impacted very quickly. Medicine, some areas will be impacted very quickly, some will be impacted later, but AI is clearly having an impact. I think how financing works in the startup ecosystem is starting to change from primarily funds to now angel funds are happening a lot more. A lot more people with a good amount of income, either as successful entrepreneurs or as professionals, are starting to participate in this ecosystem. So, crowdfunding and getting money from a lot more people versus just a handful of funds is a reality. I also think the fund model is going to get disrupted. It's starting to change. So there's that. Um, I think the last one is, I think, a theme we've covered before, that I think entrepreneurship has been very individualistic so far. And as I said, around maximizing personal uh, profit and personal fame. I think with time, purpose and profit will coexist, and really everybody will start to think this way. There's movements called conscious capitalism. There's movements called building zebras instead of building unicorns. There's movements like B Corporation. It's even actually an entity type of people
Mhm.
marrying profit and purpose. So I think, to me, I think that is another theme that's rapidly emerging. So here's a few that I see happening.
Interesting, interesting. Now my next question will be slightly on the like a rapid fire. Okay,
Sure.
so let's say there are a couple of more than couple of different ecosystems available, support ecosystems, and
Mhm.
I am doing this because I know you have been one of the first few, let's say, Indians who have been in the startup support space or startup enabling space. So that's where
Mm.
I know that I can ask these questions to you.
Sure.
So now let's say in the last few years incubators have come up, right?
Mm.
So what suggestions you have, let's say, for them? Maybe I'm not asking that okay where they are going wrong, because they are also building. It is more to do with, in your observation, okay, these are the few things incubators can do it differently.
See, primarily, according to me, and this is my hypothesis as somebody who runs
Sure.
an accelerator now,
Yeah.
that in India, historically, at least for the last couple of decades, most incubators have been connected to educational institutes. And that was a
Hmm.
requirement for them to get some government funding. They had to be linked
Hmm.
to an educational institute. Educational
Yeah.
institutes had certain ways of operating where, how they think about faculty and how academia looks at knowledge is sometimes a little bit theoretical and not practical, not necessarily practice based. So I feel some of those gaps come in. Entrepreneurship is something where you just have to practice as much as you can, and that's how you get good at it. And you want people who are very good at it, who've practiced it a lot, to really be coaching you, right? So
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of incubators and accelerators miss on this point. They've got somebody who's either done a traditional business, a non-innovative business, and they're trying to teach you how to do innovative business, or somebody
Okay.
who's read books about entrepreneurship but never really practiced entrepreneurship and is again teaching you theoretically, not from muscle memory. These are some of the gaps that I've historically noticed in some of these types of organizations. The heart is in the right place, the intent is good, but you have to have done something very well to be able to teach it. You have to be a top tennis player to teach somebody how to play tennis. You have to be a top football player or a pretty good football player to be a coach in football, right? You need to understand what you're teaching or supporting people with, and you have to have practice in that area yourself.
Wonderful, wonderful. And on the other side, now since this is a systematic shift that has happened, and now it has happened, like education
Yeah,
institutes and incubators have now collaborated. So now,
sure.
what are the few things now in this system they can do?
Mm.
Now it's already set up. So where should they focus now?
Who do you mean by they?
Now you shared a very wonderful insight on education institutes and government incubators have linked up. Now the system
Mm.
has settled. Okay, now
Yeah,
to
yeah.
shift the system, there will be a new movement that will happen maybe 10 years
Mm.
down the line.
Mm.
Now when this is the situation, now what are the top two things they can focus?
Mm. Yeah, yeah. So I'd like to make things practical. What is also something
Sure.
that I believe they can do. Like, I believe in the last couple of decades, almost every institute would have some success stories. I think
Hmm.
creating a environment where these success stories can engage with the the students graduating or in the classes in college today, there's an environment set up where these two can meet, and you create more engagement between them rather than using an academic posing as the I have all the knowledge, I'll give you all the knowledge. And
Hmm.
instead, the academic acts and a team acts as coordinators, facilitators. They're bringing the people with the knowledge, but who don't have a lot of time, the successful entrepreneurs, with people who want to go down this path but don't have necessarily the knowledge. Just create enough environments for these two people to connect. I would say that's the number one thing any institute could do. They
Yeah.
also get access to some modest funding amounts from the government. They can make that available and continue to play that role of sourcing from the government, providing reports to the government, and providing this capital to deserving founders,
Yeah.
but enabling founders technically by connecting them to other founders, probably alumni of the same college.
Yeah. 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 Also, Varun, I have observed a lot of incubators are also, let's say, struggling to create a sustainable model. because a lot of reliability, or they rely a lot on government funds. Any
Yeah.
suggestions, any inputs there?
Yeah, that's a journey we're going through too, and we got a little bit creative with it.
Okay.
Um, so at Build 3, of course, the initial funds are between the founding team, and that's where they've come from. But before that runs out, and our investments start to yield returns, which is typically a 5 to 7 year journey, given we get involved at idea stage, right? Super early. From an idea stage for it to become monetizable, it's at least 5 to 7 years. So now there's
Correct.
this 7 year journey that we have to take before we will have a ready engine of funds coming back, assuming we've supported startups that go somewhere, right? Now, how do you sustain over those 5 to 7 years? First, you start with money from the founders, but then how do you carry on? For us, what we've done is, hey, we're doing a lot of activities to build a community so people can come, be a part of this community, spend time here, live here, work here, engage in various events, which we call co-hub. So that's
Yeah.
become a business model for us that is adding on over and above our acceleration activities. Accelerator is a very focused 90-day program. You will get funding at the end of it. You have to leave whichever city, come to Goa, spend those 90 days with us and be focused. Right? अब तो business बनाना है, right? But some
Yes.
people are we're already making. Some people is maybe I want to make. So they're in different zones. I can come for 5 days. I can come for 10 days. I'm not ready to commit right now, blah 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 blah. So for those people this model works well, and think of it as a revenue model, just like co-living, co-working. That's the revenue model. So that's one thing we added. Another thing we added is what is typically called a services business model. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever we have startups, we're asking them, "Wait, what are your challenges? Where do you need help?" And we frequently hear the same things over and over, and four things we're hearing quite often, right?
Okay.
Help us with our technology product, help us with our growth marketing, help us with our hiring, and help us with our accounts and compliance work. Right?
Hmm.
This is stuff
Hmm.
we're hearing again and again, right? And so
Yes.
for this, we said, can we create some partnered organizations or agencies that can deliver these services to our founders? And so while we are still staying true to our objective, helping impact founders build their startups, but now we're providing them a service in house. So we get revenues for that. We charge as market and nothing above or below standard. And whoever wants to choose us can choose us, and with that's another revenue stream. Then we're
Interesting.
just starting to go down this route where, in the accelerator program, we have certain content we have curated to enable entrepreneurs to grow as individuals and build competent businesses. We're taking that content and we're structuring it for an online course also.
Yeah.
So that's
Oh,
one other
good.
way that we're just starting to do. And
Yeah.
lastly, whenever we do any funding, either ourselves or through our syndicate, there's some small commissions and fees that can be charged. It's probably the smallest of all the revenue streams, but that can be done. So
Yeah.
these are ways that we're sort of supporting ourselves over and above grants, and we're also starting to explore some corporate sponsorships. So you take these 4 or 5 things and you put them all together, and you hopefully get to a break-even level. And then, whenever you get exits from your startups, that really sort of takes you above and beyond. So this is what I
Interesting.
have thought. Check with me in 12 months if this idea worked.
Absolutely. We'll have a specific podcast after 12 months on this. So, Varun, I noticed that you're bracketing incubators and accelerators together. Is there any specific reason for it?
So it's a little bit of a spectrum when you go from incubator to accelerator to we are now called venture studio or venture builder.
Correct.
So it's a little bit of a spectrum.
Okay.
Incubators in India have normally been government supported.
Yeah.
They do provide some capital and they provide a space to work out of. The
Yeah.
quality of network and knowledge that they provide is usually not the best. So this is
Yeah.
the reputation incubators currently have in the market. And accelerators have a fixed time period reputation where they're normally like 60, 90, 120 days. They'll have a fixed period. They will have a certain amount that they will put in at a certain valuation at the end of the accelerator, usually. Um, sometimes can also happen at the beginning, but they have usually quite high quality networks and programming which is one of the main differences versus an incubator. It's a shorter program, more money, higher quality networks and knowledge components. And then a
Hmm.
studio is usually
Hmm.
similar money or more money than an accelerator. It's much longer duration than an accelerator because they go much deeper,
Yeah.
and usually also will be one level higher in terms of quality of knowledge and networks that they bring to the table, because they're going deeper and they're taking accountability for um, the startup success. A startup studio or a venture builder is normally narrower in approach. They'll work with far fewer startups because they're going deeper.
Yeah.
An accelerator will work with a large cohort, you know 10, 15, 20, 30. Like, I think YC currently works with 100 plus startups each cohort. So they're much larger, so the amount of focus is not as much on each one. But the startup studio, the venture builder, changes this, goes much deeper with a fewer number of startups.
Interesting, interesting. Varun, towards the beginning of the conversation, you shared a very interesting insight on a lot of angel investing happening. You see that happening for startups. So, what are some of the suggestions for angel investors so that they are not, in the analysis paralysis, considering
Hmm.
the risks that comes up with investing in startups? How they
Yeah,
can,
yeah,
just be calm and be invested in the mission. Your thoughts there?
yeah, of course. See, we're all beginners until we do things a few times, and then we become somewhat knowledgeable, right? So if you're in that beginner stage, it's very good to attach yourself with somebody who's done that 10, 15, 20, 30 times. That would be a good idea. And what you do is you work with them and either replicate their investments, or you have deep conversations on each investment to try to educate yourself and then make a decision on each deal. Going in just blind, or going in with the same approach that you use for business, will probably not suit you over here. Investment is a different model, as is building your own startup. So a lot
Hmm.
of successful entrepreneurs like sometimes take get tripped up in the early stages, or a lot of professionals who are in corporate jobs who are now making good amounts of money and want to put some into startup investing, sometimes get tripped up in this way, that they presume they know how to do this. They're very good at their work, but investing in
Hmm.
early stage startups is a different thing. So work with somebody who's done that before. In this industry, they're called lead investors typically. People who
Hmm.
know how to find a startup, they know how to use a framework to define what a successful entrepreneur or a successful startup is going to look like at the investment stage, which 2 3 years down the line might become what is deemed successful. They have a framework to do that. Then they know how to structure the terms. There are how much money is going in at what valuation. Are there various clauses like tag along, drag along? Is there like any floors or ceilings or conversion formulas that are being applied? These people are savvy about how this works, and you won't get tripped up or confused as a new investor. So that's my suggestion. Find an angel investor who's a lead, who's been the first person that invests in a startup. When you're that first person, you have this responsibility of discovering the startup, discovering the founders, applying a formula to see if they're going to grow up and become successful, and then all the terms, financial and legal, they know what each one means and how they want to negotiate those. So that would be my advice.
Interesting, interesting. Thank you, Varun, for sharing that. And what is Bill three's framework of investing? Like, how does Bill three decide that what we are going to support this particular startup?
Yeah. So I'd like to first change that word investing. Like, I don't believe we invest. I don't know how to invest, right? I'm the first one to say that.
Okay, okay,
I've built 8 startups in my life. I've
okay.
mentored a few dozen startups. I have invested in a couple of dozen startups. So I only understand working with startups. So I sort of reverse engineered this knowledge of how
Wow.
do I build startups, or how I've worked with startups who are building. I really took that knowledge and I said, what's at the earliest stages, when the business is sort of not very well formulated and will probably pivot a few times, let me focus on the people rather than the business itself. So we said
Wow.
we'll focus on four things, which is the capability of the founders, the commitment of the founders, the compatibility of the founders to the Build 3 program,
Wow.
and the commercial viability of the startup. And we give this the last weightage, right? So by capability, I mean things like leadership, problem solving, communication capability, project management. These are what I call leadership, right?
Yeah.
And then there's things like, sorry, this is what I call capability. Then on commitment, it's things like, hey, this has been a hobby for a long time. They've been reading about it, or they tried another business and now they're trying another one on this. They've left their high paying job to do this. They've put in their own money, they've put in family's money. That shows me commitment.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
capability to build three. Are you willing to come for 90 days to Goa? Do you want support in building with somebody, or do you believe sab kuch mere ko hi aata hai and I don't need help from anybody? Are you
Hmm.
okay with the amount of money we offer, which at the first stage is 25 lakh rupees? Are you looking at building in the impact space, towards SDGs, incorporating ESG sort of values in building environmental, social, and governance? So these are things that represent Build 3. So are you compatible with this way of building? Is what is the third thing. And fourth one is commercial viability, which is, is it a large enough market? Do you have working unit economics? And those sorts of things, right? So these are the four things we broadly look at when we decide to partner with a co-founder and build a startup together.
Yeah. Thank you, Varun. That's a wonderful perspective and a wonderful, because I could sense, that there is a lot of people centric approach that is
Mm,
is
mm,
shaping this path. So, yeah, that is required. So, thank you for sharing that.
for
Uh,
sure.
Varun, I think mentoring dozens of startups, supporting dozens of startups. What is again? This is from a startup founder's lens. If they are watching this,
Mm,
how do they identify their unique proposition? What have you
mm.
seen in some of the startups that you feel are doing well? Not in only
Yeah,
in terms of, let's say, numbers I'm sharing, in terms of even impact. What do you see? This is a good approach of crafting that USP or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
creating a niche. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So there's this really good essay by Paul Graham, and I can send it to you later. But it's
Sure.
essentially saying that we need to, as founders, find an area that's a problem for us, and we've delved deep into it to understand the problem and craft a solution that is high quality, and that solution has worked for us, and consequently we're likely to be able to create a solution for others. So this is called a founder problem fit. And
Okay.
too often what we end up doing is, like, we're finding cool to do things, or what are the sectors that investors want to fund. Like 5 years ago that was ed tech, everybody wanted to fund that. Now there's AI stuff that everybody wants to fund. There's these, every few years there's these themes that come up, and now we can go in that direction and go with the flow and just do what is cool, even though we may not be good at it. But my sense is that we should always get into things that we have a passion for and we have a skill for. Passion comes when it's our own problem, because then we wake up because we want to solve it not only for us but also for the world, and that's where the passion comes from. And the skill also comes from, if I have been working on something for a while, or because I'm so passionate about it, I study a lot and I learn a lot and I go get the skills. I tinker a lot and I get the skills. So that overlap of passion and skills makes you a good founder in a certain area. So that's sort of the best approach for a founder to find which area to go into. vis-a-vis आजकल ये कूल चल रहा है, इसके बारे में आर्टिकल ज्यादा छप रहे हैं, इसमें ज्यादा फंडिंग हो रही है. Those are not the
Yeah.
best ways in my opinion.
Yeah. 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 So you shared a very interesting point. Passion. I mean, if I've understood it right, passion is the
Fuel.
uh, natural fuel. Okay. So I want to understand more about the skill part. What
Hmm.
does skill mean to you?
Yeah, sure. So if somebody is going to create a business in education, they
Yeah.
should know something disproportionately about that. Either you've been as a student in a lot of educational systems, so you can reverse engineer some of the problems you faced, or you've been an educator in some way, or you've been building tools for educational institutes and you can see a challenge. Like
Yeah.
this is how you develop skill and knowledge in the relevant area. Right? I forget the gentleman's name, but it was a 50 plus year old founder that made Zoom, right? And he worked with, if I'm not mistaken, Cisco. So he'd seen
Yeah.
the problem of video conferencing, and he came up with the insight that, hey, setting up a video conference right now takes a tech guy has to come into the room and takes 10-15 minutes to set up everything. People can't just quickly get into a call, and it's very complex for most people. So he
Hmm.
created
Hmm.
a system where a link has to be shared, and you can click it, your grandma can click it and be on the call. And that was
Hmm.
his magical insight. And so he needed to have the technical skill on how to do this, which he learned at Cisco, but he also had this critical insight of what is the problem that is keeping all these other, there's Skype, there's this, there's that, there's so many tools at that time, but nothing was sort of mainstream. And his tool sort of alleviated all of these issues with the technology skill that he had gained at his past organization, and that made him a really good founder for that problem.
Interesting. Varun, this made me think one thing, that what are some of the problems that you see? Like,
Hmm.
maybe I know, you are always someone who will be thinking about problems, thinking about solving them. So that's why I'm asking this question. What are
Sure.
some of the challenges you see that, oh, this is unsolved? Can this be solved? It could be anything. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not an area I dwell too much on.
Okay.
Um, you're right. I frequently notice things in the moment that this
Yeah.
is not as perfect or efficient as it could
Yeah.
be. And if I was the entrepreneur building the solution, I would do it differently. In the moment, I think about it for 5 or 10 minutes and then I let it go. I don't let it stay with me and bother me. Right. This is
Mhm.
also a little bit of the spiritualistic part of me, which is a lot of these things that are in my assumption imperfect or a little bit inconvenient, they're there to actually trigger me and help me become more patient or more understanding or just more observant or whatever. They're there for my spiritual journey, and I think of it that way. But the area that I dedicate myself to, there I go deep and I go with quality, and I want to understand how can I make that journey perfect for every one of my customers. There I go really, 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 really deep. And so when I got into Build 3, I
Yeah.
sensed there was a lot of incubators and accelerators working with, as I say, just tech startups or just traditional startups who are just building stuff that will make money. Right? There's
Yeah.
a lot of people backing that, but very
Yeah.
few that were saying, "Hey, we're going to straddle the line between profit and purpose and build something for that overlap." That is a very unique area that, yes, we will build startups, we will use a capitalistic engine, but we will build for purpose, and it will be sustainable because it will generate profit and we'll recycle the profit into running the company. It's not going to be a grant based NGO or a not for profit, right? So
Yeah.
here I was able to spot that opportunity, and then how to make that opportunity actually work is that complex web that I was talking about. These 4 or 5 revenue streams have to be stitched together to make it work for the long time revenue stream of investment returns to kick in. It's complex and it needed some innovation and deep consideration and knowledge of the space to be able to do this, right? I needed to understand how funds work. I needed to understand how startups work. I needed to understand how accelerators work. I
Yeah.
needed to understand unit economics, business, finances, etc., etc. So I needed to understand quite a bit, and this was my skill in this case that I
Yeah.
brought, and I sort of combined it all to create this unique solution.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Varun, I was analyzing this data, very simple data that is available on
Mm,
Google, on, let's
mm.
say, top 10 reasons or top 20 reasons, startups, let's say, fail in that context.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, I'm just reading a few reasons.
mm,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Starting from 10 to 1. Okay.
yeah. Go
It's, let's say, burned
ahead.
out, lacked of passion. Okay.
Yeah,
Pivot gone bad, disharmony amongst team and investors, poor
yeah,
product, product mistimed, not the right team,
yeah,
pricing cost issues,
Yeah.
Regulatory reason challenges. Now, this is the top five. I'm
Yeah.
coming to that. Flawed business model, got outcompeted, no market need, and the number one is ran out of cash, failed to raise new capital. Okay. Out of
Mm.
this 10, if we
Yeah.
leave one or two reasons, eight
Yeah.
reasons are more to do with the founders understanding their soft skills, their relationship building skills, their outlook, their listening. Okay, so I mean, I don't see people talking a lot about it. When we discuss startups, they're just talking about numbers, let's say in this part. So I just wanted to know, I'm sure you would have seen this data, reflected on this data.
Yeah.
So sometimes I wonder, okay, how do
No,
we solve for
amazing.
these are human problems.
Yeah,
एक
yeah, yeah.
आराम से इसको तो बन जाएगा आपका startup. So I just wanted to get your perspective on this.
No, no, I love it. I agree with you 100%. And consequently, we're at a stage where we're choosing which startups are likely to be successful and which not, right? And so I have to reverse engineer what you have just said, the reasons of failure. How do I take them out of which startups we decide to partner with, right? And so the number one thing is the team, right? Who all is
Yeah,
coming together, and do they have the requisite skills to handle a variety of complex and difficult situations that are likely to show up over the next 5 to 10 years as they build the startup, right?
yeah,
So in the US, they use this terminology hacker, hustler, hipster, right?
yeah,
Hacker is typically your product guy in a physical product. They'll be like actually making the physical item. In a digital product, they're your technology guy writing code. So that's your hacker guy. Your hipster is normally somebody who understands style, understands people, is your marketing, that sort of person. Packaging, look and feel, website. They're that sort of person. And then there's your hustler, the person who can zoom out, see the big picture, see the gaps, sort of nudge the business in a certain direction. They do your BD, they do your fundraising. They're normally that inspirational leader who can sort of like communicate well. So you need these three personalities which can handle then a lot of situations that come the business's way. So that's one thing, that balance in the team that we're looking for. So you want these sort of skills. But skills, if absent chemistry, like if you can't stand each other, you can't be nice to each other, you can't spend 16 hours a day with each other, it doesn't matter how good you look on paper, but you can't play together, right? Like good
yeah,
teams are
yeah.
not 11 solid players. Good teams are 11 players that can play well together and play as good as 12 or 13 players, right?
Good teams are like spouses.
Oh, always, yeah. It's these are
Yeah,
partnerships, right?
yeah,
All partnerships, whether it is in marriage, whether it is in like project teams, or whether it is as co-founders, in every place, partnerships are deep and complex, and you need to have complementarities of skills, and you need to have chemistry of personality, and that's when you will end up building something long term of meaning. So that's one thing we definitely look at, these high quality, balanced, compatible teams. And the next two things, which are address some of the other points you brought up, is
yeah,
people who have this frugal mentality of building startups. They understand financials. They're smart about the money. They don't blow it up quickly. They're always thinking about how am I spending this intelligently, and the business is constantly growing, and I don't run out of cash,
yeah,
right? So that's the second thing. And the third one is, and we call that zebra entrepreneurs. It's an up and coming term. Unicorns used to be there, and one of the other terms some people have heard of is camels, which are very frugal animals, but they're individualistic animals. Zebras are community animals, yet frugal, and that's who we sort of like think of our startups as. That's the best metaphor in the animal kingdom. That's the second thing. We're looking for zebras rather than unicorns. And the third thing we look at is, it's very easy for people to talk. Only some people can convert an idea into tangible action and manifest it in the real world, right? So people who can convert an idea into actions, into results, that. So we look for these three things: balanced, compatible, high quality teams, people that can be frugal and yet community oriented, can manage their capital for a long time and sort of build slowly but smartly, and then people who can convert ideas into on ground actions versus PowerPoint banana आता है, बातें करनी आती है, but धंधा नहीं करना आता है, right? That's
Mm.
the three things I've realized to reverse engineer exactly the challenges you said and try to
Mm.
avoid them. This is our hypothesis. I'll ask me again in 1 year if this worked, or
Yeah, yeah,
maybe 3 years.
yeah, yeah. So I have made two observations. Looking at a lot of startups, that there are, let's say, single startup founders who are brilliant in their, let's say, identifying the problem and converting into actual reality.
Hmm.
But in the process, because people sometimes get lost and they are not enjoying the process, or rather, if not enjoying, they are not experiencing fulfillment in the process.
Yeah,
Once they reach to the next stage, and of course they have made the money, but that experience goes for a toss.
yeah,
That makes them a that makes that experience makes them human being not happy, or not,
yeah,
they get sad. Okay, so
yeah,
of course, that's a people centering aspect. And the other
yeah,
observation that I have made is that founders who are maybe in the team, they hesitate to communicate, thinking what the other person would think, even if it's a very small thing in the organization, or big, like, they have in a way have an agreement which they don't want to alter. So these are two challenges that I have noticed in last 10 years. So I just wanted your perspective on how, if the founders from those two buckets are listening this, what are some of your suggestions for them?
yeah. So the first one is you lose energy, excitement, motivation to build your startup after a while. And that to me comes from a place of we started building the startup for the wrong reasons. We want it was a cool business or we can make money doing it. Those were the
Yeah,
reasons. The reason was not I'm building because this is a problem I'm motivated to solve. It's intellectually challenging or it's emotionally rewarding or it's a family member is facing this problem. Like those are really good, strong reasons to build because that's the motivation that will last you for years and years and years. Like things like becoming successful or getting fame or money. As you said, within a couple of years, next round of funding happens, one or two articles get written, and you feel satisfied, and that energy goes away. So
yeah,
we should find truly reasons that matter to us and build those. Is one. Uh, for me, that is unleashing human potential, helping people reach their best version of themselves, and
yeah,
hence an accelerator sort of is connected with that for me, right?
yeah,
The second one you said is communication between founders, and this also goes back to something I just said a little while ago, which is
yeah.
sometimes we find founders because it's either easy or on paper we look good. Like यार ये
Hmm.
तो साथ में ही बैठा है तो इसके साथ मैं कर लेता हूँ versus ऑन पेपर इसको एजुकेशन आता है मेरे को टेक्नोलॉजी आता है साथ में एडटेक कर लेते हैं राइट लाइक these are very
Hmm.
superficial reasons to build together. Good quality partnerships, as I've learned, and there's this book called Reinventing Organizations that
Yeah.
taught me this. Good quality partnerships comes from three things:
Okay.
alignment of purpose,
Mm-hmm.
alignment of organizational values, and alignment of role. That's when
Alignment of rule.
role come.
Rule. Okay. Rule. Got it.
Uh,
Got it. Yeah.
when these three get aligned, then you're likely to be really good partners for a long time. Purpose is क्या बना रहा हूँ किस direction में जा रहे हैं. For build three, that is enabling impact entrepreneurs to build startups that make the world a better place. As long as people on the team want to do that, we are purpose aligned.
Yeah. Yeah.
Value aligned means how we're willing to do that, right? Like I think my example is, like if you think about real estate developers, some
Yeah.
real estate developers would be like, hey, I'm willing to bribe a government official to get my land, and some will be like, I'm not willing to do it.
Yeah.
Those two different developers cannot be partners because their
Yes.
approach to building is different, their values are different. So,
Yes.
fit for organizational values talks about this point, which is how we go about doing our work, how we take decisions, not which direction we're going in, but how we do that work. So, there needs to be alignment in that also. If there's
Yeah.
misalignment there, again, the co founders will have issues. And the
Yes.
third one is this role part, which is like फर्क काम आने चाहिए. Hacker, hustler, hipster होना चाहिए. किसी को technology आना चाहिए तो किसी को sales आना चाहिए, right? That
Correct.
complementarity is important, but not only that's important, these other things are also important. If we find all three things between our co-founders, it's likely to be a very long, happy, fruitful, productive
Yeah.
relationship.
So, I also know that Bill 3 focuses a lot on community building, creating a
Mm,
safe atmosphere where, founders can come together and address each other's challenges, be it personal
yeah,
or professional, or for that matter, anything.
yeah.
Why do you think it is important, Varun? And secondly, if there is any corporate leader or HR leaders from, be it they are working in corporates or they are working in organizations, big organizations, they do let's say if they want to do community building, फ्राइडे रात को दारू पिलाने ले जाते हैं. If they want to do तो कुछ बैठ के कुछ ज्ञान दे देते हैं. So I want your, let's say, perspective on what can be done to make that shift in that in that area. Your understanding on that, it would be great.
In how can organizations be more effective at community building? Is that your question?
Community building, moreover, create a safe and secure atmosphere for teams, people to succeed.
Mm, mm, mm.
नॉट जस्ट बाय फॉलोइंग अ चेकलिस्ट. अच्छा हाँ, अब तो ये करना है, वो तो
Yeah.
चेकलिस्ट होती है. वो आई
Yeah.
मीन उसमें खाली ये होता है कि हाँ हो गया, कर लिया इवेंट, 12 इवेंट किए, एलएनडी का बजट है, कर दिया. So
Yeah.
I also want those people to, they can learn from the experience that you have, because I know 91 Springboard is about all about community building, and so I just want your perspective on that.
Right. Um,
So I see that gap, Varun. I see that gap when I speak to, because when
of
I speak
course.
to friends, so I see that gap. I want your perspective there.
Of course. No, I understand. So, community building really means people of varied backgrounds come together for a common purpose. Right now, this could be like, one of my favorite communities that has come together in the not too distant past is like the Aam
Yeah,
Aadmi Party, right? They said we want to build um, a non-corrupt India, and that brought together people from all sorts of places, right? From overseas Indians to local Indians, different educational levels, PhDs to not even 12th pass, people speaking different languages, practicing different religions, people from technology, people from corporate sector, government sector, all sorts of different people came together because the purpose was really aligned. And these communities work when there is a lot of acceptance of people and who they are. So irrespective of their backgrounds, and one likes to dress a certain way, one likes to speak a certain way, one likes to work a certain time, there needs to be a lot of acceptance around these areas, and that's where communities feel safe. So an understanding of this concept that people are inherently different, and let's trust and respect them and make them feel comfortable. When you have this understanding, a leader of an organization can create an environment where everybody feels safe, and when they feel safe, guess what, they do their best work. Pura
yeah,
dil dimag laga ke they do their best work, right? So first, I think a leader needs to understand that this is important. Using old school methods like fear and authority to get
yeah.
things done is slightly older ways of thinking, according to me. Creating ways like inspiration towards a common purpose, and then giving a lot of freedom and making people feel comfortable, and then sort of letting them do their magic, is really the current way to enable a happy, healthy workplace. So leaders need to be comfortable with this thought. Then they need to practice this themselves. They need to be very, very open and understanding and accepting of people of different thoughts and backgrounds and ways of behavior, as long as it's not affecting the purpose that everybody's working towards. And when they create this environment, who everybody starts parroting the leader, right? In an organization, you start copying them, and that's what's called culture, right? The expressed values of a leader becomes the expressed values of the rest of the people. That in totality becomes the culture, right? So this
Yes,
is sort of, I think, the thought process and the behavior that leads to this journey of entire organization. People feel happy, safe, secure. Everybody is their own owner and doing amazing work with maximum energy and ability.
wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Varun, for giving your valuable time. and
Of
having this
course.
conversation. I think we touched upon several areas, and we tried to give each and every stakeholder, not only in the startup ecosystem, but in the corporate ecosystem, your perspective, so that it enables them to think and introspect in this direction. So before we end this conversation, it would be great to hear your closing thoughts or anything that you always want to share with the community. Feel free to go ahead and express that.
Hmm. Okay. Well, it's a little bit selfish. We're starting up our next accelerator batch.
Whoa,
uh,
woo.
Starts April 15th. Applications are on now. Last applications in by March 20th. Results by April 1. So if you're an entrepreneur looking to build a startup or have been building it for the last few months, I would like to turbocharge that journey with fellow people as excited, as motivated to bring about positive change in the world. Think about applying. Build3.org is our website, and we'd love to sort of partner you and do something amazing that makes this world we all live in a better place. Yeah.
Thank you, Varun. Later, please share the link with me. I'll put it in the
Yeah.
comments also.
Yeah.
So thank you, Varun. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. Always pleasure talking to you. Always,
Always.
I mean, I feel like I'm talking to my elder brother, so it gives
Yeah.
that feeling. So thank you.
Thank you,
And
younger
yeah,
brother.
thank you, viewers, for joining us. And I promise that I'll be back with one more episode on Monday. So stay tuned. Bye bye.
Cheers, man. Bye. Build3.org/accelerator, just so you know.